Hey guys, it's Maymay and welcome to Stamping Saturday. This is the day of the week when I play with my stamps and things that we carry in the store and just stuff that you either have purchased or might purchase and you want some ideas for how to use it if you've purchased them from us, things that we carry. So today I'm going to look at this stamp set, or this actual stamp, which is huge by the way. This is what it looks like in the package. This is by Do Crafts. You guys have seen me use the wood background a lot. This is the paisley background, and this guy is so pretty. And I'm going to play on the whole coloring craze that is still going strong, by the way. I think we've gone through 2 Christmases of the coloring craze. So this is a card that my friend Karen Price made. I love this card, and I'm going to be playing with this technique. I've wanted to show you guys how to do this for a long time, and I think that this paisley stamp is perfect for this. This one she did with my stamp set called Floral Kaleidoscope. These flowers are so pretty, and then the little sentiment from there. And look, she even stamped the inside, which is beautiful. And I'm going to show you how to do that too, because I think it's super cool. So to get started with this, you're going to need 3 pieces of cardstock. The first one is going to measure 5 1/4 by 4, okay? The next one is 4 by 2 3/4, and then the next one is 2 3/4 by 1 1/2. Now, this cardstock I'm using is a thinner weight. It is not paper, but it is not my heavy base weight cardstock. This is like a 65-pound cardstock. The reason for that, when we stamp on top of this, we want our image to go onto all 3 pieces. And the thicker our cardstock is, the more likely we are to get a little gap here where our stamp doesn't lay down really well. So don't use your really thick cardstock for this. Use something thinner so you'll get a nice flat layer there to stamp on. The next thing I want to tell you is these measurements are for an A2 size card. This card is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 landscape card. See how that opens this way? So that's the size I'm working on. Now I'm going to do my sentiment a little different than she did, but I think this is adorable. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to line these guys up and temporarily adhere them together. I wrote the measurements on this paper, so I'm going to flip this all over because I'm going to stamp on the front, and this will get it, the back side will get adhered down, so I'm not worried about the numbers being there. So this piece is 1 1/4 inches smaller all the way around than this guy. So if you're really picky about getting things centered, you guys know I'm an eyeballer, so this wouldn't stress me out at all. But if it does, I want to show you how to use this ruler to your advantage to make this easier. This is the Tim Holtz ruler. It doesn't have to be this one. This is just happens to be the one I use. And it has a grid on the inside, so you can use that grid here to make this easy. So what I'm going to do is take 1 1/4 inches and half that, and that gets me 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to line up the edge of this ruler using the grid on the inside at 5/8 of an inch. Let me point so you can see what I'm talking about here. So here's what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that line that runs inside the grid is my 5/8 mark. So I know if I take this paper and butt it up against this ruler, I'm now where I should be on both sides. Now to make it even better, because this is a grid, I can count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and know exactly where I need to place the top of my little extra piece of paper, and now I'm centered top and bottom. So that's pretty cool, right? And if you don't look, you see me move it because I still am going to eyeball. So in case my cuts were a little off or something like that, now I'm just going to take this little adhesive runner that I have, and I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of tape down there and sit that down. Not stressing about it, just a little bit of tape. Same thing here. I'm going to line this ruler up just the same way I did it there, and then using those measurements just like that, and that one looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to put a little adhesive underneath and just stick that down. Now, those are just temporarily adhered into place, okay? So that is not permanent. You want to be real careful not to move those or shift them around, but that's what we're going to put into the Misty now. We've got everything lined up. So let's bring the Misty back over. So here's the Misty, and I'm going to get where you can see this corner here, and I'm going to put this into this far corner. Now, I'm going to do just a little quick test run and make sure that this stamp is going to get everywhere I want it to get there, and it's not, so I'm going to move the stamp to where I want it. And I want this stamp to sit just in this area, and you have to make sure that it's in that corner of your Misty so that it can be stamped onto the page there. And then I'm going to pick this up right there. Perfect. Now I know when I stamp this once, if I need to stamp it twice, this is where I'll do it. Everything's where it needs to be. So in the far corner, my stamp is lined up nicely. And now the ink I'm going to use. I'm going to use some Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to be using some alcohol markers on this. So I want to ink this up with this Memento ink. And where I'm inking it, you might find that you get a little give in this corner. So you might want to ink in both directions, kind of across this way and across the other way. And just make sure you get ink everywhere this is going to touch your paper. This stamp looks like a very detailed background, and you'd think you'd see a lot more ink on your stamp, but you don't because it is such fine line and so detailed. And we'll place this on the page and press. Now again, the beauty of this is if I don't get this just right, I can pick this guy up and do it again. And I can re-stamp it, but that's pretty close. Look at that. I think I am going to put one more coat of ink on it just because I think it needs a little bit. So I'm going to ink this one more time. Why not? If you can, do it, right? If you can ink it twice, ink it twice. Now having that in the corner where I want it, place this on top and then press again. That's much better. Now see all of the pretty paisley? Now I'm going to show you something. Because there is a bleed around my stamp, there has to be that bleed that's a little area where it doesn't have stamp. I have a little tiny piece that didn't get stamped all the way to the edge. I'm not going to stress about that. I'm just going to cut that off. If you want to maybe adhere this down to the middle, because you can stick this down. You can't use markers with this big, you can't use the magnets with this big background stamp, but you could put a little tape and hold this into place on the back of it and then stamp it twice there. But I'm just going to trim that little bit off and not worry about that because it's not going to matter. All right, so this guy is ready. So I can put this guy aside as well. So I'm going to trim off that tiny little bit of extra that did not get stamped, and you won't be able to know the difference. Just going to trim that little sliver away there, and this little sliver here. And now it will look like I was able to get that all the way to the edge. I want to tell you too, you can do this same technique without a background stamp because you can do the same thing with just your stamps and just stamp in different places with all 3 pages together, and you'll still get the same kind of effect. Now I'm not going to take this apart just yet. I do want to show you. Can you see the little white gap between the pages? That's because of the thickness of the paper. If my paper had been much thicker, it would be much more obvious. In the end, it's not going to matter that much, but for now you can see it. Now the markers I'm going to use today are something we just got in the store that are new. This is the Spectrum Noir Colorista line. What's cool about these is that it's a pack of colors that you can use together by just saying, I want to use this color family, or maybe I want to use this color family here. And these are alcohol markers, and they're made for the colorer. They're made for you to be able to pull out a coloring page and go to town. So we're going to use today, I think set number 1 was my favorite. Yeah. This is set number 1. I love that one. Set number 2 are those colors. Number 3 are these colors. Look how beautiful the pastels. Number 4 look like this. Isn't that gorgeous? Number 5. Number 5 is the most limited that we have right now in stock. There we go. Wanted it to focus. And then number 6 looks like that. So this is what the markers look like out of the package, and they have a double nib. They have a fine point on this end. They're very snug, just like Spectrum Noirs typically are. So there's the fine point. And then they have a more broad point, which is this one. No brush or chisel on this one. They're just both bullet tips, and that's cool. Also, you can see which one is where by looking. This is the bigger, this is the smaller, so that's really nice. Okay, so I'm going to use that set today. Those are in the store, and we'll keep them in the store based on, you know, how popular you guys like them. Maybe you love them and you want them all the time. We'll keep them all the time. All right, so I'm just going to start coloring. Now this is one of those things that I could do all day long because I can get as detailed or as simple as I want. People ask me a lot about which inks to use. When you're using alcohol markers, it's best to use something like Memento Tuxedo Black or the Memento colors because the alcohol does not smear that ink. I don't want to use a VersaFine with this because the alcohol in the markers can smear it. Now, when you're coloring, you definitely want to leave the pieces together because this is what's going to give you kind of that neat uniform look when we separate these to put them on the card. The image will stop and start at these edges and the colors will carry on throughout the whole piece. So I'm just going to color, color, color. And wouldn't this be fun to give someone, like if you stamped an entire sheet of this paisley stamp and then gave them some markers? This would be like a coloring sheet all into itself. What I'm doing is I'm just taking each different marker. I'm on my second one, and I'm just finding different places to use it. And then I'm just going to work my way through all the markers and not worry too much about placement because I know this family of colors matches, so I don't have to search. I can know this works. Having these two nibs helps because some of these little spots are really tiny, and being able to get into these tiny spots with that smaller nib is really nice. Another thing I like about this is since the holidays are over, I feel like I can spend more time on each card. I don't feel like I'm having to rush through the cards as much and having to make so many. So this is one of those things where you can make these kinds of cards and just sit down and color and then put them in your stash for when you need them throughout the year. And you still get your coloring fix as well. So I feel like I've carried my purple around the page pretty good. So now I'm going to pick up this color, which is called Daffodil. And let's see how it looks on the page. So I went through my stash and I found some paper that I thought looked really pretty with it. I like this purple color with this, and I'm going to be really, really lazy. Now, I'm going to be lazy in the video and use my perfect mini layers, but I will tell you the measurements when I'm finished. I just don't want to measure right now. I've already measured all those out, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue these guys down and just leave a little bit of gap around the edge so I can come back and use my perfect mini layers and mat this up. So I got all these guys glued down to the page, and I'm going to take the perfect mini layers and I'm going to make a 1/8 inch border. So these little rulers line up next to your page. They have like a little lip that catches on your page. So you can cut that perfect border without having to do the measurement and just let this guy do the work. So I'm just lining this up and cutting it out. Just like so. And then I'll move these out of the way for a second. I can come right over here and just continue doing that. So it just catches on that paisley cardstock that we did. And it lets me cut exactly a 1/8 of an inch. So now all of our pieces are matted in purple. And I'll tell you what my sizes are, but there's going to be a little difference here. This purple is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, but the reason for that is because remember I trimmed a little extra off of the stamped image. This guy is, my adhesive's still sticking there, 4 1/4 by 3. And then this guy is 3 by 1 3/4. So that's the purple behind it. But again, I just used my little perfect mini layers to make it easy. Okay, now we need some foam squares. So what I'm going to do is on this center square is add some foam squares to the corners. Just like so. And one in the middle. And now he will get mounted in the middle of this, lined up with our other pattern. So remember to turn your pattern in the right direction and just line it up. Look at that. So the pattern continues underneath our mat. Isn't that pretty? That is so pretty. Now I'm going to put this little guy down, and I'm going to use foam squares for him as well. Same thing again. Line your pattern up. So I need to find one of these that I can line up like so, and then stick that down. So there's the panel all stamped with our dimension. Isn't that so pretty? I think that looks so cool. And now we need a card base. So I've just cut a piece of 8.5 and 11 paper in half, and I'm going to score this piece at 4 1/4, and this is going to be our card base. And now I'm just going to mount this here in order to have a white edge around it the way we trimmed it. Oh, I think it is so pretty. Let's glue this down. So this is the one that we did today, and this is the one that Karen did. I want to show you how she did her sentiment because I love it here in the middle. So she stamped around with individual stamps, starting the same way I did, stacking the pages, and then she did the mats. But she left the middle for her sentiment. I didn't. I did the whole page like a whole note card like this, and I think it is beautiful. Now, this is the time of year when I make cards and I do not put sentiments on them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The reason is, it's the first of the year. I don't know what I'll be using cards for, right? So I like to have some of these where maybe there's a surprise birthday or maybe something sweet happens for somebody and I just want to send them a card saying, well, that was awesome. I'm glad you had such a blessing. Or I just want to congratulate somebody and just have a simple blank card. These kinds of cards are perfect for that because they're so graphic on the front. Isn't it beautiful? I hope you enjoyed this technique. Thanks to Karen for doing this. This was actually a card kit she brought to one of our card parties back in the summer, and I've wanted to do it ever since then. So now we have done it. Thanks so much for watching. By the way, if you're interested in any of the supplies used today, there are links to all of that below. Have a great one. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.